No Hitler, no Holocaust, no Cold War, but a German empire that stretches from the English Channel to the Urals. This is the world where the Schlieffen Plan did not fail. In September 1914, Paris fell. Not after 4 years of trench starvation and poison gas, not after the Americans arrived and the Germans retreated. 6 weeks, the French government fled to Bordeaux. The British Expeditionary Force, caught between the advancing First and Second Armies, surrendered at Lille. By October, Kaiser Wilhelm II rode through the Arc de Triomphe on a white horse, and the 20th century veered onto a different track entirely. The world did not end in a single battle. It ended in a series of moments that, in our timeline, never happened. The French signed the Treaty of Bremen in November 1914, surrendering Alsace-Lorraine and the entire industrial north. Belgium was annexed outright, a German protectorate with a new name, Flandrian. Britain, having lost the Channel ports to German guns, sued for peace in early 1915. The price was her African colonies and most of her navy. If this alternate history sparks your curiosity, take a moment to like, subscribe, and comment which other timeline you'd most want us to explore next. But the most consequential moment happened 1,000 miles east, in a sealed train crossing Germany toward Russia. In our timeline, that train carried Vladimir Lenin. In this timeline, the train never left. The German High Command, flush with victory in the West, had no need to destabilize the Tsar. They demanded Russia's surrender at Brest-Litovsk in 1915, and the terms were devastating. Poland, the Baltic states, Ukraine, and Finland became German puppet kingdoms. Russia shriveled to its medieval borders. The Tsar survived, but hollowed out. A client of Berlin. No Lenin. No Bolshevik Revolution. No Stalin. No Soviet Union. The greatest ideological catastrophe of the 20th century. Erased by a single cancelled train. Now here is where the story gets strange. Because the Central Powers did not simply win a war, they built a world. The September Program, a real German war aims document from 1914, became the blueprint for Europe. Mitteleuropa was born, a customs union from the North Sea to the Black Sea, with German as the language of commerce, German banks controlling every railway, German factories supplying every market. Austria-Hungary survived, but as a junior partner, increasingly dependent on Berlin to keep its 12 squabbling ethnic groups from tearing it apart. The Ottoman Empire, propped up by German military advisors, kept its Arab provinces. No Sykes-Picot, no modern Middle East as we know it. But here is the revelation that should make you pause. In this timeline, there is no Treaty of Versailles, no war guilt clause, no reparations, no stab-in-the-back myth. German democracy was never humiliated. The Weimar Republic never existed because it was never needed. The Kaiser remained on the throne, a constitutional monarch presiding over a victorious, prosperous, self-satisfied empire. Adolf Hitler, a failed artist in Vienna, never radicalized by defeat. He died in obscurity in the 1940s, a footnote in a history book that never got written. The Holocaust never happened. The gas chambers were never designed. Auschwitz remained a quiet Polish village. But here is the hard question. What fills the void? No Nazi terror, but a German-dominated Europe with a colonial administration in Africa that rivals King Leopold's Congo for brutality. The Herero and Nama genocide of 1904 became a model, not an exception. In the new German Africa, stretching from Cameroon to German East Africa, indigenous populations were displaced, resettled, and forced into labor camps. The language was efficiency, not extermination. But efficiency can be its own kind of darkness. No Cold War, but a world where the United States, having never entered the First World War in force, retreated into a guarded isolationism. The Monroe Doctrine still held, but America was a spectator to a European order it could not challenge. Japan, seeing the British Empire collapse and the German Navy dominant, made its own uneasy peace with Berlin. The Pacific became a careful chessboard. And then, the scientists. In our timeline, The rise of Nazism drove Einstein, Szilard, Fermi, and dozens of other Jewish physicists to the United States. They built the atomic bomb for America. In this timeline, they stayed in Europe. German universities, already the finest in the world, became the undisputed center of nuclear physics. By 1945, the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute had developed a working reactor. By 1955, Berlin had the bomb, and there was no rival superpower to check it. The world became a German nuclear monopoly, not through war, but through the simple, patient logic of technological supremacy. Every nation knew that Berlin could turn any capital to glass. They did not need to threaten. The knowledge was enough. So what kind of world did the Central Powers build? Not a utopia, not a paradise, but a world where the 20th century's worst horrors never happened, replaced by a quieter, more competent, more durable authoritarianism. No gulags, no Holocaust, no nuclear standoff, but a German emperor in Berlin, a German governor in Brussels, a German viceroy in Kiev, and a German bomb that made every other nation a supplicant. The trains ran on time, the factories hummed, the universities produced breathtaking science, and somewhere in a quiet village in Poland, a failed artist died in his sleep, never knowing what he had been spared from becoming. But the world he never got to terrify, freedom, the fragile, messy, beautiful experiment that emerged from the ashes of our timeline's wars, that world never got to be born either. And that is the thought that lingers long after the history books close. We live in that quiet village now, the one where the artist died unknown. The streets are cobbled, the church bells ring the hours, and the children play in the square beneath a statue of the Kaiser on horseback. The world beyond is orderly, predictable, and safe. Safe in the way a locked room is safe. There are no sudden wars, no revolutions, no radio broadcasts that make men weep with hope or fear. The newspapers print what the censors approve. The universities teach what the state endorses. The trains depart on time every time, and the passengers read their approved newspapers in comfortable silence. And yet, there is a whisper in the late-night conversations between old men who remember the time before, in the poems that circulate by hand, never printed, never signed, in the way a young woman in Berlin paints a sunset that bleeds too red, too wild, too free. The system is immense, efficient, and gentle in its tyranny, but tyranny it remains. The bomb sits in its silo, the governor sits in his palace, the emperor sits on his throne, and the people sit in their homes, warm, fed, educated, but not free. The artist's grave is unmarked. No one remembers him, but the absence he left behind is not a void. It is a shape, a shadow where the 20th century's most terrible light might have burned. And in that shadow, the world grew differently. Not better, not worse, just quieter. And perhaps that is the hardest truth of all, that horror and heroism are twins, and when you cancel one, you cancel the other too. The world that never needed to fight for freedom never learned to love it.